Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of EdTalks. I have a guest today, Dr. Manish Kohli. Manish, welcome to EdTalks.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for having me.
Tell us about yourself.
A truly pleasure to be here on the show with you. My name is Manish Kohli. I'm a family doc at heart. I've had the privilege of working with some great people and great organizations throughout my career, starting at Hopkins and then moving to Partners Harvard in Dubai, and then obviously Cleveland Clinic Abu Dhabi, where you and I connected.
Yes.
And then subsequently as board chair of HIMSS. So I feel like a kid in a candy store having these amazing opportunities and to work with great people.
Yeah, I know and I'm glad we ran into each other at HIMSS because I was like, I've always wanted to have you as a guest on one of our shows, and you have such a fascinating background as you just quickly went through, and I love what you're doing today as well. And so I wanted you to tell us a little bit about the Pul Alliance.
Yes, that's something very close to my heart, and that seed was planted in me when I was a medical student. I had the opportunity to go live in a village in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, serving refugees. And what I realized was, while as an idealistic medical student, went to the camp to do great work, we were unprepared. And in many ways, we actually did more harm than good by being there. And fast forward to today, you realize the power digital technologies have in connecting communities.
Yeah.
The best thing we did at the time was leave a book. They're called Where There's No Doctor in Spanish. And now we can connect these communities to a plethora of rich resources and really create sustainable, resilient communities and health ecosystems globally. So I served as a serial CMIO, and certainly, we were all very privileged to work with great teams in driving complex transformation initiatives. And then something called the pandemic happened. And I happened to be on the board of an organization called Wings of Hope, which has been nominated twice for the Nobel Peace Prize for the work it does in taking donated aircraft and purposing them for humanitarian efforts, either salvaging them for parts or donating fixed aircraft for humanitarian missions. The first question that was asked of me was, Manish, can you recommend a software that will help us collect data? Well, when you ask a CMIO that question, it's going to end up with a few more questions. And that led to a journey of discovery saying, oh my gosh, there are amazing people doing amazing work in the front lines. They don't have the basic tools. And by the way, if we were to spend the resources to get a data collection tool, it will not get used because that's not the primary objective. So data collection, as we know, has to be a byproduct of patient care activities. And that principle holds true there, especially there because of the lean resources that exist there. So then, through a number of conversations, it was clear that what you and I have had privilege of in terms of resources to bring transformation about in our institution is lacking in the last mile.
Yeah.
While a great amount of goodwill is purpose to improving global health, we're not seeing the impact. And the reason is we've left a big gap in the last mile. So we thought, let's pull together a group of us who can actually support last mile strengthening initiative at these organizations that are just doing amazing work with a lot of friction. So simple things like supply chain, digital transformation, medical equipment. It's not good enough to give a piece of equipment. You really have to think about how that equipment will be installed, used, and actually be tied to patient outcomes. One of the startling facts is that 70% of medical equipment that's donated to low resource settings doesn't get used. It goes into landfills. And the reason is that there's not adequate training, there's not an adequate maintenance program, and we don't really align the equipment that's donated with the need. I mean, the question I get asked more often is that, my gosh, I wish somebody had asked us what we needed. And what happens in low resource setting is that if somebody is giving something out of their generosity, you accept it and say, we'll figure out how to fit it in. And I think as we look at strengthening the last mile, we have to take a different approach. Let's define the problem that we're trying to solve. And it's not a problem that Manish or Ed define. It's the problem that the frontline leaders are defining. And they're amazing people, smart people, talented people. And then we work with them on, well, how do we solve that problem? What are the requirements? The kind of the scientific approach that we use in our day-to-day lives. And then turn around to the supplier market and to the donor market saying that this is what needs to happen. But then this is what we call in the medical jargon, the afferent loop. The efferent loop is the execution management. We simply cannot just give training and equipment and saying, then good luck.
Yeah.
Execution management, project management is needed, and that needs to be funded. So we then work with these organizations on achieving the transformation, but then now you're a different organization. You just don't go away.
Right.
So our model is we align mentors with frontline leaders so that, 2 years from now, you're thinking of doing something or you have a problem. You can call Ed. Hey, Ed, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And I think that kind of conversation, that mentorship relationship is where resilience is born, right?
Yeah. This is so good. We'll put in the show notes how to get involved because you're absolutely right. I've been very fortunate like yourself to be involved in missional type of services. And sometimes you'll go through these lands and you'll see one empty dream after another, right? Where someone came in, made an investment and left, didn't have the infrastructure that you're talking about, the long-term mentoring, the long-term presence, the very astute need for other interventions other than just, oh, here's a bunch of supplies or here's a building. So I love what you're doing. How do you think you got that heart, Manish? You obviously have a heart and a passion to help others. Where do you think that came from?
I think a lot of what we have comes from our early childhood. I was born in India and I grew up there when I moved to the US when I was in high school. But I've seen disparities. And the question that I always had as a child was, well, how come little Johnny over there is different than me?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that sort of was the seed, right? But then as you have experiences, especially in healthcare, especially as a practicing physician, you see the social ills, how opportunities can make a big difference between one outcome versus the other. And then, I had the privilege of being in Abu Dhabi and we helped build a stroke center among many other great things we did in Cleveland Clinic. 2 years later, my mom had a stroke in India and she didn't get the right care for 12 hours. This is India. This is in the capital city. And she went to a community hospital, right? So then my mission was how many mothers like this, whether it's in a low resource setting, whether it's in an urban setting, are not getting the right care. So, with the skill set and the gifts that I have and with the opportunity that have been afforded to me, I realized that improving access to quality care is going to be my life's mission.
Yeah, love it.
And when you look at a market size of 3 billion people that generally have a cell phone, but do not have access to healthcare, clean water, or toothbrush, that's our opportunity. So you think about this, right? Is we have all this money that's being spent on global health development. We have this market that's actually more ready than we give them credit to. I mean, they live in the 21st century in their homes because of the mobile phone. When they come to their workplace, they go back 200 years.
Yeah.
So now how do we take this and map that to the right resources and skill set? And this is more of a, connecting the dots problem rather than not having enough. And I think people like you and me have that skill set and the experience that if we bring that into the mix, I think magic can happen.
Yeah. So Manish, what would you say to someone listening who, and I agree with you, I think some of this is formed in our early childhood. I think because I ask myself the same question all the time and wanted to make sure that I pass this on to my kids, right? That they would have the same sense of empathy and love and care and wanting to help. What would you say to someone watching who maybe didn't have that opportunity growing up, but they're professionals like ourselves and they want to get involved? Like, what's maybe the first step? Obviously, Pul Alliance is going to be a great resource and something everyone should check out. What might be another first step that someone takes to sort of step into this and see what it's like?
The first step is look around you.
Yeah.
The change begins with us, with me, right? And Pul Alliance is a resource for everybody. We love to have volunteers. We love to have our vendor partners who have great tools and technology. We love to have donors who are aligned with changing the world and making healthcare better. So certainly, we welcome people from all walks of life, but we also believe that we need change agents on the ground in the grassroots, whether it's in the US, underserved communities, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Asia, right? The world we imagine in the future is that if Manish is in a small community, wherever in the world, right, and he's trying to move the dot and he needs help, all he should have to do is get in touch with Pul Alliance. And we bring the world to you in a manner that helps you achieve great things. So it's really about changing the paradigm at the grassroots level.
Love it. Manish, you're a breath of fresh air. Thank you for all that you've done for our industry, pushing it forward and doing what you're doing to serve humankind. And thank you for being a guest on EDTalks.
Thank you, Ed. I really enjoyed this, and we're just getting started.